On today's episode, we talk to Nick Whitfield, the CEO and founder of CityUnscripted.com, a travel experience startup. We talk to Nick about the challenges of leaving a highly paid and successful career and the impact that's had on family life. It's a great illustration of the sacrifices you have to make when becoming an entrepreneur, and I think it's going to be really instructive to anyone that's interested in taking that path. So, listen and enjoy. Welcome to the show, Nick Whitfield.
Very good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Nick is the CEO and founder of an innovative new travel experience startup called City Unscripted, which is doing amazingly well. And you could tell us a bit about the numbers you're doing, whatever you want to tell us, obviously, but give us an idea of how successful it is.
Yeah.
But first of all, why don't you just kind of explain exactly what it is you guys do?
Sure. So City Unscripted is all about trying to make travelers' experiences of cities when they're traveling much better than they are today. So what we are is a curated marketplace that connects curious travelers or independent travelers to vetted local hosts around the world to try and make that experience that much more personal. So, personalization's really fundamentally important and truly authentic. So not the usual sort of follow me, run-of-the-mill tours. These are true experiences, private. People do really get to immerse themselves in the city and actually get to do and see things that they're interested in, rather than just the sort of tick box tourism that is the sort of run-of-the-mill tours today.
And that grew out of your own experience, wasn't it? It's something that you had when you were on holiday. You had a bad, or maybe not a bad one, but not an optimal experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think it's because I've lived overseas a lot of my life and worked overseas, and I came back to England. There was an experience when at work, because I was looking after lots of different nationalities coming from the Middle East to London. They were asking me for all kinds of advice for them and their family while they're in London. I found it incredibly difficult to find things other than the top sort of 20 attractions or whatever it is. Because that's what people really, maybe the first time they come they want to do that, but actually that's pretty superficial. But it got me thinking about my own travel, and there had been two recent trips that I'd taken, and they were very dissimilar, and it made me think seriously about all the other sort of travel experiences I've had. So the first was in Johannesburg, where I had a good friend from Bristol University where I was at, a guy called Gus, who was working in a bank there. And I had very low expectations about Johannesburg because of its reputation, principally, although I do love South Africa. But he was able to really make the city come alive for us. So he was able to introduce us to people, take us to weird and wonderful places, new markets, amazing food, meet people, like I say, that I would never have met before, and actually get a real feeling for the city and make a proper connection. And I compared that to the trip that I took a few weeks later with my now wife to Paris, where I had hugely high expectations. I had got some advice from a Parisian who'd lived there in the past. So we had some idea of what to do, but actually when we got on the ground, we ended up doing, we did some of the tourist stuff, but even that was, overrun, couldn't get tickets, and it was just queues, and then ending up going to the same sort of eateries, not seeing the areas that I wanted to see. It was good fun, but it was just, again, like I said before, it's just superficial. And getting that really deep connection to a city, and which is really important to actually enjoy somewhere properly and understand it, really only comes when you've got somebody who you've got a connection with. And typically that's been a friend. So we're trying to replicate that friend in the city experience.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I always think when I walk through the West End or Leicester Square or something, and I see these tourists going into, one of those restaurants right on Leicester Square.
Aberdeen Steakhouse.
Yeah, Garfunkel's or something. And I think, mate, just walk 5 minutes round the corner and you'll find somewhere really amazing.
Yeah.
But of course, they don't know that, right? How are you going to know that? It's like you said, if we go to Paris, we're not going to be aware of where the good places are.
Yeah.
So, an amazing idea. So how long have you been going, and how well is it going?
I've been working full-time at City Unscripted since January, February 2015, so just over 3 years. Most of the team has joined in the last 18 months. So my co-founder, Juna, she joined 2 years ago. And then Anna joined about a year and a half, almost coming up to 2 years now. And then the rest of the team, bits and bobs, have been there since the start, but most of them have only been around for about the last year as we've grown. So in the beginning, it took us quite a while to sort of, because we were obviously building this all from scratch, and it was just me, and I had very little technical. I've got no background in technology.
Did you actually build any of the tech then?
No.
No, okay.
No, but I was. So what I did do was that I was designing it, giving the design, the ideas, what I wanted, but absolutely not. I mean, that's been one of the biggest challenges, I think. You can have all the best ideas in the world, but if you can't translate it into exactly what you think, and actually then redefine it constantly to make test, etc. That's been one of the hardest things. So initially it took about a year and a half to get the site to a position, to get the local hosts. Initially it was just London, because that takes a bit of time to pull it all together and then get listed, because we didn't want to spend on marketing until we really knew what was going to work. So we listed through online travel agents. That takes a lot of time and effort and building relationships. Still with some of them, 2 years on, they've listed very little because they're just very slow, or they're just very clear about what they want. So we've really only been selling for about the last 18 months. So initially it was obviously pretty much zero. This time last year we were doing about 3,000, 5,000 in revenue a month. Now we're at about 53,000 a month. Wow. So it's grown over 1,000% in the sort of last 12 months. And we've got every expectation that it's going to do the same in the next 12 months. People are telling us that they love it.
Yeah.
Which is that's basically what we want to hear.
Sure.
People need to love it in enough numbers to rebook us, to tell their friends about it, and then it's all going to be good. But that's the thing for a small startup, is getting out there. People need to hear about you, and it's a crowded marketplace. A lot of people starting up all the time, lots of friends doing it all the time. You're not that special. So getting that cut through is
don't put yourself down.
Well, I know I am very special, but I need to tell other people.
Right. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive, right? To be making that much money so early on in your journey, and it does kind of say to me that people do really value that experience.
Well, I think so. It's not been easy. We're constantly testing. I said, it's a small team. So you try and do joined up stuff, you try and do the lean startup where you've got to reiterate, that takes a lot of resource, frankly. And you can plan, but then you need to get taken in a different direction. I suppose one of the biggest challenges is constantly reprioritizing and making sure that you are going in the right direction. So far, I think we haven't made too many screw ups, but there are always screw ups. You do go down the wrong roads. It's just how quickly you find out that that's the wrong road, and how quickly you turn around.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. You, so I think you said 3 years ago was when you kind of started the process, and your background was finance, right? Accountancy, is that right?
Well, you say that, and it's defined me for too many people too long. So I qualified with PricewaterhouseCoopers in 1998.
Oh, you
and haven't been an accountant since.
Okay.
But I have worked in finance in different roles. So in industry, I was at Cadbury Schweppes, working on global innovation, so establishing new categories, not chocolate particularly, but trying to establish new categories using radical new innovation, using new ingredients. So I was working on the M&A side of that as well. So trying to find people who've got really interesting products that actually properly deliver something that isn't in the market, and then testing that in different markets. So going from pretty much, this is where we want to be. We like the healthy foods, healthy snacking. We see that's where it's going. What can we do? And then look out and then build something. So working with a really wide group of people, anybody from, the people who actually make the initial testers, the scientists, the marketing people, the supply chain, the whole lot, which is brilliant. And then more recently in investment banking in the Middle East.
So if you're working in M&A out in the Middle East, that's a pretty good lifestyle, I think. I mean, I guess you probably were still working quite long hours.
It's nothing like the UK.
Really?
Yeah. So we worked hard sometimes, but really, I mean, my wife works in structured finance now, and the hours are considerably worse, sadly. So yes, yes, this is a conversation I have with my wife. Yes, we're in a very comfortable situation, and I think, the reason that we came back was twofold. I suppose I could have always stayed in investment banking and probably had a relatively easy life. Although if I come back, it would have been a bit different. I suppose I've just always had this burning ambition to do something that I really strongly believe in.
Yeah.
Money is not everything. It's about fulfillment and, working with people to create something of real value. And so for me, that has been the driving force. My pay now is like it's a very small fraction of what I was on before, which causes its own problems as well. So it's not a stress-free road at all. And I think, if I'd known what I was going to go through, would I still have done it? That's the $64,000 question. I'm not sure I can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be kind of my question, which was, how do you go from what I'm assuming was earning quite a decent amount of cash, and then being a startup guy who's sort of just having to scrabble around for finance, fundraising. That's a tough, a brutal wake-up call, I would have thought as well, because I know from my own experience, when I first started out in startups, you come into it and you go, this is going to be easy. I'm amazing. People are definitely going to give me cash. No worries. And then you start down the road and boom. I mean, you're probably not quite as awesome as you think you are. I mean, I'm not saying you. But yeah, I think that's a realization everyone has. Most people.
I think most people have that, and I definitely had that. I knew it was going to. Well, I suppose it's redefined what tough means to me. I think.
Really, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been lucky in my life that things have gone my way more often than not, and that is, that's not just down to me. That is partly down to luck for sure. So yeah, earning £1,000 in a startup versus earning £1,000 in an established brand that's got all the routes to market. You're just basically crunching the crank or whatever to churn out the money. It's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
I did not appreciate how difficult that would be. I really didn't.
Yeah.
And without the support of my wife earning money, we wouldn't. I wouldn't have been able to do it for as long as I've done it.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. I had enough money to give myself sort of 18 months, but then after that, you have to rely on other people, and you've got to sell the story.
Sure.
And there are a lot of other people selling stories. And it's now more than ever. It's the easiest. It's so easy to set up a business. That's not the difficult stuff. It's everything that follows.
Mm. So yeah, the point you make about kind of how easy or charmed your life was before, I think I see this in a lot of my sort of friends, that if you follow that structured path career-wise. Go to a decent university, go and work for a big company when you come out of university on a graduate scheme or something, and then just follow that path upwards. You can get to the age kind of where we are now, around 40, and you're quite senior by that stage, and you're earning a decent amount of money, and it's just set up for you. Your life is set up. If you follow those paths and you're born into a kind of a lucky life, as I guess both of us were, where those opportunities are open to you, then that is an easy life you can follow. But what I see more and more now amongst my group of friends is that people get to about this age and they go, hang on, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And for sure a lot of people do stay and do that, but guys like you go, no, hang on, I want to build something that's people love, and it changes their life and it makes their life better. But as you say, that's not without its challenges. So tell me, when you first started building the product, was that self-funded?
Yes. So it's the first year was entirely self-funded. And I just wanted to comment on that. I think a lot of you, that's absolutely right. With what you're saying about your friends and that charmed life, and you get to a stage, and I think there's almost the need for people to actually step back before they make any rash decisions and actually really get somebody to think through what they're doing, because a lot of the time, it's just a switch in your mind. You can actually probably enjoy what you're doing without risking it all. That I'm not necessarily built like that, but I know others who've tried it and they've regretted leaving and they're trying to get back in it.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's just a question of, what do you like about your job, and is it really something that you can really fully commit to? And I think a lot of the time people just don't commit. They still get to partnership or whatever it is, but in their heads they're not committed. So it's just turning that around. It's not for everyone, and it shouldn't be for everyone. Because life can be easier, but maybe not as fulfilling.
I mean, tell me about it. I dropped out of that lifestyle a long time ago, and the jury's still out whether that was the right decision. But I just know I couldn't do that because, being in the city for a couple of years, I didn't feel fulfilled at all.
Part of you dies inside every day.
Too true. But I know I couldn't have done it, but it's not about me anyway. So, and what was the sort of the reaction of everyone, your ex-colleagues, your wife, when you said, I'm going to leave this great career I have and start this crazy idea? I don't mean your idea is crazy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's, when you're on the beginning of that path, when you've made that decision, you are I don't know if it's just me or it's lots of people, but you can actually make yourself quite deaf to other people's comments.
Yeah. I think you have to.
Yeah, and particularly with somebody like my wife, she's a lawyer by training. You can't get much more risk averse than that. So in hindsight, we have talked about it, and it's causing problems. Frankly, it has. I mean, you expect things to generate, because we've got kids. You've created a certain sort of lifestyle that you're not fulfilling. So yes, definitely issues there with colleagues and others. I think partly in life, it's you've got to be quite lucky in the roles. Well, I don't know. You've either got to be very good at spotting potential mentors in the companies you're in, people that really bring you on. Brilliant teams working together, that sort of thing. I haven't had too much of that in my life, so I didn't really feel like I was leaving very much other than the money. Okay. So I didn't really feel like, I thought it was more of a risk to stay in that, because I just thought for me, just individually being very selfish, it was important for me to test myself. You know, it's almost like it's a bit naive in a way, because I always thought, you know, I don't want to go through life. You know, it's when you've had it sort of too easy almost, you feel like you've got to really challenge yourself to see, you know, what you're made of. But actually, when the challenge comes, it's like, what was I thinking? Why would you do that to yourself? You know, I don't regret it, but it's no plain sailing. And, you know, you've got to be, you know, a very optimistic person. I'm a very positive person. If I wasn't, you know, I would really struggle.
Yeah, I often say this to people who are considering getting into the entrepreneurial lifestyle. You basically have to be delusional. And highly kind of, I mean, people say confident, but it's delusionally confident about your ability to overcome everything.
Yeah, I remember actually you saying that, because I was on holiday with friends in Barbados when I could actually afford to go somewhere nice, and they had,
you miss those days.
I do. I had a book from Mind Gym. I don't know if you know Mind Gym, but no. Mind Gym are quite interesting. They're quite heavily into psychology, team building, but they come at it from quite an interesting angle. And they did this book, and there was a quiz in there because everybody loves a quiz, particularly if it's about them and insight. Oh, that's so true. So I filled it out, and it rated you on a scale of, I don't know, extreme pessimist to the other end. And the other end, which is what I came out as, which was dangerously optimistic, which all my friends thought was actually apt. You know, really? I was like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, and what happens as well, once you get into that entrepreneurial journey, is that even if the evidence starts telling you that you're not quite as amazing as you thought you were, by that stage you're so far in that you want to prove that actually, hang on, I am as awesome as I think I am, or I don't want to look like an idiot.
It's also having benchmarks. You know, what is the right benchmark to measure yourself against? I mean, obviously, running out of money is one of them. Making a profit is another. Getting people to obviously want to invest is another. But it's a tricky one. You know, you have ups and downs. You know, I mean, we've grown mostly pretty consistently, but we have had months, 3 months, 4 months in a row where things haven't changed that much, or maybe there's been a bit of a dip and you think, God, you know, what are we doing that's wrong? You know, when you've got competitors who've got a lot more money than you, people keep telling you, you know, we're worried about, you know, like an Airbnb, and we keep telling them why they shouldn't be worried. But, you know, it is difficult to find the right way to measure how successful you're being. And, you know, I think it's simple in a way to say, well, we've grown significantly. It's not easy. We can see a clear path in our minds to really scaling. But, you know, it's you're never really happy with where you are, because until you've got, you know, much bigger, and you've got the consistent cash flow, you know, there are people biting your hand off to buy the business, that sort of thing. You know, you're not happy. Yeah,
and that's one of those crazy things, because by any measure, with the amount of money you're making every month shows you that people love the product, right? And it's not an inconsequential amount of money that you make. But of course, that's not why you started it. You started it because you want to build a massive business, I think, right? I'm pretty sure.
You know, I started it 2 reasons: something to really believe in and get behind and enjoy.
Yeah.
But secondly, definitely to make money out of.
Yeah.
You know, whatever I was going to do, it's not a lifestyle choice. This is the big punt. You know, I want to make money out of this. And, you know, I also owe it to the investors. But, you know, that's always been very clear to me.
Sure. The point you made about the people close to you sort of, you know, going, oh, what are you doing here? I think those things, if it's so important to you to do something like this, you're not going to be happy if you go back to your old lifestyle unless you've given this 100%, right?
Absolutely right. And actually, one big benefit of this is that, even if you risk and if you fail, you would have proven so much, you would have learnt so much on that road, that you're actually quite a different person, I think. It really brings out your responsibility. You actually want to add value. You're not just doing the least possible, right. The politics and all that, you get it as well. I mean, it's, I always was so anti-politics in the businesses but it's just life. I mean, politics is just people, frankly, isn't it? Call it politics and you can put it down, but actually it's people. And so there are many, many things that I've learned about relationships, about people, about, obviously all the business. I mean, I didn't know much about marketing and, all these other areas, branding and other things, but you are much more valuable if people really care to look. So you try and fail, but actually you've really given yourself probably like 5 years worth experience that would have taken, if you had been in industry, for example, versus 1 year.
Yeah, and when you say, if you try it and fail, I always think about how entrepreneurs view failure and how people looking at them view whether they're failing or succeeding. Because I guarantee you, if you told the average guy on the street that you started a business and you were turning over what you're turning over, most people would think that's a massive success, right? Because they would. Come on, this startup world is a bubble, which is just, it's an absurd. I don't mean it's a bubble in terms of valuations, but I mean it's like like an echo chamber or whatever. People talk about unicorns and being billionaires by the age of 30. Not going to happen for either of us, I'm afraid. But when you consider that on a global scale and the global population, just starting a business, most people do not do that, and then most people don't make any revenue if they do start a business. And then to get to where you are, I think it's really important that startups and founders are not too harsh on themselves when considering these sort of things. And of course, the big goal is to become a huge business and sell for a lot of money. But I do think founders should every now and then just go, hang on, we're doing all right. Yes, we want more, but let's just consider where we were 3 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're spot on with both points. I think, I am very proud of what the team has been able to do in the last sort of 18 months. We've all really committed. It's a very flat structure. It'd be nice to have more time to get more social stuff and maybe, get more creativity from the team, but it's all been so flat out, do. It is good to take a breath sometimes, but at the same time, what you're saying, with your peers, yes, they think it's doing quite well, but actually, the test for them is it's always about relativity.
Yeah.
Everything, I think, in life. So, as much as I hate to admit it, I always used to think that I wasn't one of these people that compared myself to others, but actually it's human nature. It's human nature. It's difficult to fight it.
Yeah, it's not a healthy thing to do, but we all do it, right?
Yeah, it's really annoying. Even with a car, I was like, no, we can have a crap car. It's old. How often do we really use it? It's like, but all our friends have got this, and if we, it's just, oh God. And then we end up getting a nice car, and it's like, it's just, what are we doing? Anyway, so I think where we are is doing well, but we're still burning through money. We're not profitable, which is obviously one of the yardsticks. And I guess from somebody like in my family, they would be like, well, when's the lifestyle going to come back?
Sure.
So yes, you're right. You do need to smell the roses, or whatever the expression is, but it's not always the easiest thing to do for very long.
Of course. Again, that's human nature, and maybe a Western thing as well, right? Because you hear that a lot, that people, particularly in the West, always think about what they don't have, and they're never really grateful for what they do have.
Yeah.
Well, this is getting a bit spiritual now. That's a different podcast. So, along the journey of the last 3 years, what would you say has been like the toughest moment, the biggest kind of, oh shit, this is terrible, we're going to go under? Have you had a moment like that?
A specific moment, I suppose it's a constant. Okay, so initially, obviously, the first year was a bit easy in many ways because you've got the funding.
Yeah.
You're just having a bit of fun. When it's not having fun, I mean, taking it seriously.
It's all exciting,
but it's there, and it's all it's all the promise is there. I think the challenges really come when you have to start delivering. So building the team is always going to be a challenge. I got a bit lucky there as well, but I suppose for me it's not constant. I suppose once you've raised the money to fund you for the next year or whatever, it sort of disappears a bit. But it's always in the back of my mind is the cash. Yeah. So for example, now we're doing a fundraise. I think we're in a great position. It's relatively early in the process, so there's still a lot of hope that it's going to come through. But there is cash flow problems. There's not problems, but the runway's not long.
Right.
We want to get the growth. We need to accelerate the growth, but how much? It's balancing the time for me spending on the growth versus the fundraising. Without the fundraising, things get messy very quickly. So the challenge has been personal. My personal life. Not having that money. Not nearly enough money to sort of do the things that we want to do, to be able to pay for the things we want to pay for, has become quite a challenge in the last year.
Okay.
Like a major issue. So much so that you start thinking maybe I have to try and do 1 day a week somewhere else,
right,
to get more money, just to be able to sort of paper things over. So that hasn't gone away. That's a challenge today as much as it was sort of. Actually, it's more of a challenge today than it's probably ever been. So that I haven't overcome that yet.
No.
And that is one of the things that you do need to think about, because I've got a responsibility to myself, to the business, to my family. What is that right balance?
Yeah.
Because there are always options. That's the thing. I've always. One of the things that I learned from one of these management courses I've been on in my old jobs was people think they don't have choices. They think that they go down the road, and it's got to be this or it's got to be that. But that we have choices about absolutely everything, and we have to take responsibility for that. But we know that is our own choice. It's only for us.
That's interesting.
So I think it's really empowering. I think you can take different routes, you can make all different decisions, but don't ever blame anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I love that attitude. Actually, that reminds me of Clive Woodward, which I don't know. Are you a rugby fan?
Yes,
I kind of assume you would be. Have you read his book?
Winning. Is it
Whatever
Winning?
It was,
I think it's Winning. Yeah, I have read it.
Yeah. And I read that sort of just after he won the World Cup, and I think it was him anyway. But it really stuck with me, whoever it was. But I seem to remember that one of the major things he implemented in the England team was to take responsibility for everything. Right, never blame anyone else. And if you started getting penalised in the match, don't blame the referee. Just don't do things to get you penalised.
Exactly.
As simple as that. And I think that is a great attitude.
You have to adapt to what's in front of you, don't you?
Yeah.
And if you don't want to, that's a choice, and you can sort of guess what the repercussions are going to be. So
yeah. And I think that is actually a great attitude to take into business and life, because when you were talking about the cash flow pressures, I was just thinking, I bet you're sort of waking up at like 3 a.m. and not being able to get back to sleep because you're going, oh, what am I going to do? Where are we going to get the next investment from? And then when you were saying to realize that you've got options, that must take a lot of the pressure off, right? Because going and working a day, a week, doing some consulting, sure, it's not your first choice, but actually, with your CV, you probably could earn a decent amount for 1 day a week, and that takes a huge amount of pressure off. It's not going to fix the whole problem, but, it helps you. And then also that realization that failure isn't terminal in kind of your life sense. So even if the worst comes to the worst and you have to shut down a business, that sounds like the end of the world. But you know what? Life goes on.
I mean, actually, I think we're in a sort of position now. I don't know if it's entirely true, but I think we could with the revenues we've got, even if it was just growing slowly, we could probably scale back and actually manage something which was making a small profit, and then I mean, I don't want to do that, frankly.
No.
But at least there are options there as well. So, but yeah, like you say, I mean, it's fine having the options, but you sort of know what you want.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all about your own personal goals, and it's what you want to achieve, and it's why you started this business. It's because you want to build something that people love, that makes their holidays better, and that you love coming in every morning and doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
and then at the end making a load of money.
There's nothing. I mean, there are probably lots of things better, but it's a really amazing feeling still today when I go through the reviews that we get.
Yeah.
And just when they've taken a lot of time to write a properly long review, and just how much they've enjoyed it, and they've made a real connection with the local host. They've had drinks with them subsequently, or gone out for meals, or they're stuff like that. That's very difficult to do, to create.
Yeah.
But when it's created and you've really made an impact on somebody's life. I was thinking of these guys in their 70s. We do appeal to all kinds of people, which is good and bad, I suppose, but it makes it a bit more difficult to know where to focus. But, these guys were coming from the US, a couple in their 70s, their lifetime trip to Italy. And we gave them 4 experiences, or 5 experiences, I think. 3 of them were with the same person, and they could not have written a better review. I mean, it was just, they had the most amazing time. And you have such responsibility, because we knew, he'd written us this whole thing. It's like a story of what he was, where he's coming from and how important this holiday was. And it's like, we have a real responsibility to deliver or over-deliver.
Yeah.
And when we do, it's amazing.
No,
On the occasional time you don't, it's like...
Yeah. Now, that's incredible, because that kind of thing sticks with people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a memory that lasts a lifetime.
I mean, that, and it's, I think part of the challenge that we have is that we really genuinely want to deliver what we say we're going to deliver. In a world where marketing has gone crazy and over promises everything, that is difficult to sort of get across. I mean, the best way is through the reviews. But people don't always believe, the hype, and they're not right. They're right to a lot of the time. So, it's like the cut through is, the reviews probably are the most powerful thing we have.
Okay, that's where you guys are now. So raising money at the moment, and then what does the future hold? What are kind of your plans in the next year or two?
So we got big plans, as you'd hope. So we're going to build the team out for a start. We need to get people to help with the marketing who've got proper experience in B2C, digital, etc. But the grand plan is to, build out the mobile solution,
go to many more cities. So we're in 34 at the moment. We're looking to be in about 100 by the end of next year.
Wow.
And probably 200 the year after. To build out the local host network, so that, you know, I'm not sure I said, but we've got people who are 18 up to 73. We want to get a huge variety of people and continue that, because, you know, that's recreating that sense of belonging requires a relationship where you have shared interests, shared personality, background, whatever it is. So the more experience, more interests we offer people and the different types of people, the more likely they are to recreate that sort of experience of having a friend in the city. So a big part of that is we're working on an algorithm to match the guests to the local hosts. You know, from all we look very closely at the reviews, like I was saying, but we also get feedback from the local hosts, and we ask them, you know, how like-minded do you think you are to the guest on a 0 to 10 scale? And if it's over 8, 9, 10, without exception, the experience has gone very, very well, and the review from the guest will repeat the same. Below that, then it's completely the opposite. So, well, not always completely opposite, but I think the point is that matching of personalities. It's just we're trying to reshape. You know, the closest thing we offer is the tours today, but you know, we're recreating that to make it a proper experience. So it is partly about the personalization you get, the hidden gems, and seeing parts of the city that only locals see. But the other side is getting that relationship and actually making a proper connection to a place. So not superficial, really quite immersive, you know, not saying just immersive, but actually there's a chance of having a proper relationship with somebody. We're going to push that out more. We're going to build out the network. So, you know, the network of local hosts is about 1,000 of them at the moment. We want that to be about 3,000 by the end of the next year, 10,000 in 2 years. You know, we see this, you know, if we get it right, which we think we have already, but as we expand, you know, this should be very appealing to a lot of people. And actually what we're not doing at the moment, which we will be doing in about, in 6 months' time, is the digital advice as well. So a lot of people would still like to get advice from a local, but not necessarily want to be shown around by them. Okay. So they miss out on the personal relationship bit.
Through an app or something.
Through an app, or also on the go. So you know, you get a day's worth or 2 days worth of on the go advice. You got somebody who we've matched you to who's got similar interests, but you can just text them questions. I'm stuck. You know, I'm here.
Okay.
What do you suggest? Do you have any recommendations for the meals tonight? You know, can you book it for us? Whatever it is, because that's often how we work, isn't it? You have a plan for the morning, maybe finishes a bit early. Now what? You know, what do we do now?
So if people want to have a look and use the service, where can they find it online?
Yeah, so the website is CityUnscripted.com. And yeah, just take a look. If you want to get in touch, just email me at nick@CityUnscripted.com. Always very happy to hear from people. And you know, the team's very good at, you know, giving a very personalized experience. So
excellent. Thanks very much for that, Nick. Sounds like a fascinating business, and I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you very much, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.